In this video, we have a special guest. His name is Jason. He's a game developer and also a YouTuber. In this video specifically, we're going to talk about his career journey on how he became a game developer, how to make money as a game developer, and we're also going to take a look at what are some challenges for being a game developer. Throughout this video, if you have any comments or any feedback or any video ideas that you'd like to see me making in the future, please comment down below. So Jason, thank you very much for being on this show. And Jason is a game developer and also a YouTuber. So Jason, can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me on, first of all. Like you said, a game developer who mostly does YouTube stuff now, but I've been making video games for 20-something years, and I just really love it. I love talking about it, love sharing with people how to make games. So I spend a lot of time kind of talking about that on YouTube. About 5 years ago, started doing YouTube and just sharing what I knew about game dev. At that time, I was really heavy into virtual reality and started sharing that stuff, and then realized that people were interested in learning about game dev stuff, and that I kind of knew things to teach. So, and then started shifting over to that. But before that, I was doing a lot of different game development, from MMOs to mobile games and like even VR stuff. But that's pretty much me.
Cool. I mean, what do you do for a living? Is it game dev entirely, or is it also other things?
Now it's 100% just YouTube. So I
Nice.
used to do
Wow.
a lot of game dev, a lot of contracting, a lot of just big game projects for AAA companies, and it's slowly kind of transitioned away into just focusing on YouTube and trying to teach people and help others be better game developers.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Now, that leads to me my first question. Your journey as a game dev, tell us more about how you get started all the way to where you are now.
Sure. That's I guess a kind of a long one because I'm old, but I'd say it started out when I was young, because I really was into computers even as like a little kid. And when I was probably like 6 or 7, I had uncles that were heavy into computers, and they would occasionally just show me that you could program and teach me not really like teach me how to code, and I didn't know anything, a little kid, but give me kind of the idea that it was possible to tell a computer kind of what you want to do. So by the time I got my first computer of my own, when my games got boring, because I could only afford 2 and there was no internet to just download a bunch of games. When I say my mom could only afford 2, right? I was a kid. But when those got boring, I started just kind of playing around, trying to make my own. So just start writing a little bit of code. And they were all like little tech-based adventure things that were really, really simple in BASIC. But that kind of got it in my head that I wanted to make games when I got older. Like that was going to be like the thing that I wanted to do, was make really cool games. And I thought I'd make something insane. I had lots of cool ideas when I was a kid, and then I kind of went away from that as a teenager for a little while, and then popped back up in my early 20s. I kind of knew a little bit of programming. I played a lot of video games, and every now and then I would write a little tool to play my video games better, like a little application. Nothing good or complex, and that would be mostly searching on Google or whatever it was. I guess it was on Yahoo back then, trying to find answers and just trying things out until it worked. But what happened was, and it was kind of a very strange thing, I started a little bit of non-programming work at Intel. I got a job doing a tiny little bit of programming that I was, again, really, really bad at, like way worse than my 13-year-old now. Not even close, right? Like I was no idea what I was actually doing. But with that little bit of experience and kind of having coded a couple little tools for myself, I got reached out to by a friend who worked at a game company that I'd met playing the game, and asked me if I wanted to come work in the QA department with. I was like, definitely. So he knew that I knew how to code a little bit, and he wanted a little bit of code done, like a little bit of automation stuff, but mostly a bunch of testing. And I was like, yes, I will definitely, without a doubt, take that job. So I told my wife, hey, we got to move to California in 2 weeks because I didn't take this job. And luckily she was supportive and was okay with it, because it was a big move, like 1,000-something miles. But it ended up working out. I started coding there a little bit in the QA department, and then from there got laid off 3 weeks. I guess 3 weeks in, I got laid off, and then got rehired. So it was kind of a wild, weird ride, I guess, into game dev. So I got laid off. I think I've told this story a couple times, but 3 weeks after I got hired, I got laid off. The company got bought by Sony. It was a split off of Sony and got got reacquired essentially by Sony. Not technically, but essentially that's what happened. And everybody, a bunch of people got laid off, including myself. But then I got rehired because for the 3 weeks that I was there, I guess I was doing a relatively good job, and they'd already decided the layoffs long before I'd gotten there. So anyway, long story short, that got me into it. And then from there on, I just started meeting a bunch of game developers and learning a lot more about game code and getting a whole lot better at it. So that's
Wow.
pretty much it.
What was the first coding engine that you used in that company?
So at a company, it would have been Unreal, but before that, it was so the first stuff that I coded in was all just like simple, basic tech things, and then I went to Game Maker, which was like on the Amiga and Commodore systems. There's like a very simple introductory game engine. Like it would let you make simple little sprite-based games. I didn't do very much with that, but then as a teenager, I started playing around with the Torque engine, which was an open source 3D engine that I thought was really cool, but I didn't really understand much of it at all and really got lost. So I made no progress with that. And then the first actual engine that I worked with in a company, the first time I really got back into game engines was with Unreal, with the game that I was working on with Sony. So that was Unreal 2 to 3. It was some version like right in between 2 and 3, in like a development version in between there, I guess, and then a fork of that or a branch of that.
I see. Which one's your favorite engine at that time?
At the time, I didn't really know, to be honest. I didn't know that there were very many options. There were a lot of custom engines inside Sony that were being used. Almost everything was using its own custom written stuff. And I'd played a little bit with custom written engine stuff myself, but we're really terrible at just doing that. The rendering part, the graphic part of the engine setup and physics stuff is just not really my strong point, not really the part that I found enjoyable. So the second I found out that I could use something like Unreal, I just kind of really loved it, that and the Torque engine. But then I guess if it's okay to jump ahead a little bit, when the iPhone came out, I made a small jump. So I was talking to a friend who wanted to start up a game company, a game studio, working on mobile development stuff right around the initial iPhone launch. And I left Sony and we went off and started building games in Unity with Unity and C# for the iPhone. And the main reason for that, the biggest reason that made that jump was that Unity was the first engine to support all of the mobile devices. They beat everybody like by, I think, a good year to the market for supporting iPhones and iPads and Android devices and pretty much everything. They're just really quick at getting support out. And I already had a really strong C# background, so it made it easy for me to switch over to that code. And I found that personally, I love it, and I plan to probably stick with Unity until I stop writing code or something. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe something better will come along one day, but I'm pretty stuck on it right now.
I see. Gotcha. Now, my other question is, what are some ways to make money as a game dev? How can someone make a career or make a living out of game development? What do you recommend?
There are a couple options. I think that the best one, the first and default one, is to just get a job as a game developer at a studio making games. And there are a lot of different game studios out there, all different scales. There's big ones that everybody knows, all the giant AAA companies. But for every one of those, there's probably somewhere between 10 and 100 smaller game studios as well, that are just kind of spread all around. Luckily, lately, remote work been relatively easy to find too. So there are a lot of these positions for smaller and mid-sized studios that are open to remote developers. You just have to get your foot in the door. And that happens best by having a really good portfolio and contacts. So if you have both of those, a couple people that work somewhere, or somebody that works somewhere, or people that know people that work somewhere, and you have a good, decent portfolio that shows that you know how to build stuff, it can get you in relatively quick. Outside of that, though, you don't have to necessarily build games at a game studio. There are also a lot of companies, probably just as many, if not more, that use the game engines for non-game industry or industrial and like commercial types of applications, things from interfaces that you might see in the mall or at a shopping center, or things that you see in a big manufacturing plant or in warehouses. There's all kinds of software that uses these game engines, either Unity or Unreal, for things like virtual reality, be able to visualize all kinds of different things, and building training apps, augmented reality, being able to see where different stuff is, or just interactivity, because they want to have like these really cool interactive displays where they have nice visuals and graphics and touch screens, and it's got multi-touch port. And game engines just do that really well out of the box, really fast fast, and they're probably the best option for most of those. So they get used all the time for that kind of stuff. And that's another great way to make a lot of money. There's a lot of good cash there. There's a lot of people dumping a lot of money into projects like that.
I see. Now, let's say if someone who have an idea, have a game idea, like, and they built it, like, how can they, make money?
So they had a game idea and they built it on their own. If they've never built any game before, they're very unlikely to make any money. They're probably never going to even finish the game, or if they do finish it, it probably won't be what they intended. I would recommend that people work on some games with other people first, build some stuff and build some other games. And then once they have a good idea and understanding of how to build games professionally for somebody else, then start working on your own stuff. I know a lot of people have like these big ideas of a game that they want to make, and they think that like, I'll make this game, it'll be huge, and I don't have to ever work again. I'll be like Notch, and make Minecraft. But those are really, really rare, like kind of a 1 in a million rare canary, I don't know, unicorn. Most people, I think, would be better served by actually working on a team with some other people first, taking some of those skills and what they've learned through that process, because you're going to see like the entire process from people who've gone through it before, of starting a game, prototyping it out, building it, releasing it, and making it ideally profitable. You can see that in action. It helps a lot more, I think, when you're trying to build your own games. You can, however, like if you have the time and making a lot of, I guess having a stable income isn't a big deal. You definitely can build your own games and start to monetize that and kind of build something and get it out there. Again, I just wouldn't recommend it for your first thing. And if you do want to do that, though, make sure that when you start building that game, you start talking about it and sharing it right away. Don't wait until it's all done and then expect that you're going to release it and have it be big. And this is like a whole separate subject. But if you're doing that, you have to be, I guess, really careful. It's hard to make money just building and releasing your own games on your own without a plan. I'd say you need a big plan to make that happen. I would really struggle to do that. I definitely recommend working somewhere for a little while first, at least.
I see. Now, have you ever done this yourself? Have you built a game and have you tried to sell it somewhere else and make a profit out of it? What does it look like?
Yeah, I've done a couple little ones myself, primarily in virtual reality. I did them right when the VR stuff came out, and they were fine. They were a little bit profitable, but it was, again, it came down a lot to timing and getting the things out. Those ones, I think I got kind of lucky because I got them out there right at launch time. So one of them ended up being a launch title for the HTC Vive on Steam, which was really cool. It was like one of the first 40 Steam VR games, and it made a lot of money because of that. But I think that was, again, just a fluke. If you do want to make money, though, getting into something, do look for those new marketplaces and like those new opportunities. As things open up, the bigger players aren't really interested. They're not interested in getting into a market that has 10,000 people or 50,000 people. They're just not going to jump into it. They're going to ignore it for quite a while. So there's a lot of opportunity right at the beginning to get in, build something really good and polished, and kind of build a little footprint. I've seen quite a few companies come up doing that, from games that are augmented reality and virtual reality based. And same with non-game startups. They happen the same way. So everybody, all the people that get in really early end up having a huge advantage. Just like with the first iPhone, the first mobile device, the first iPhone developers could make a simple little pond that you could tap on and make a couple $100,000 just because it was first. You got getting there early makes a big difference if you just want to make some cash quick.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Now, my other question is for someone who are, seriously considering this game development as a career, can you help us to find some challenges, or what are some challenges for being a game dev? And I noticed that you posted a community post on YouTube, like asking people what's the hardest part about being a game dev. And it seems like a lot of people are saying that getting things finished. But what about in your opinion?
Yeah, getting things finished is definitely the hardest part when you're working on, especially your solo project. It's usually less of an issue when you have a big company project because you've got some management and a plan. I mean, it's not an issue. It's still an issue at big companies, but much less of an issue than I think when you're working on your own projects, which is where I think people were voting when they got to 67% with this one. But it does become an issue getting things finished, largely because it's hard to know when a game is actually finished, like when it's done. With some business applications, it's really easy to say, this is done, it does the job, it does exactly what we wanted it to do, meets the requirement, cool. With a game, it's more about, is this game fun? Is it entertaining to players? Is there anything we can do to make it better for our players? And there's constantly room room for improvement. There's always ways to make the game better. A lot of those ways make it worse. Like a lot of the attempts to make it better end up making games worse, but there's always opportunity to make it worse. It gets a lot harder to figure out that done point as a finished. So I think that makes things drag on, especially because it can happen on each individual system and then make each one of those subparts or systems take a lot longer. But for me, I think the hardest part about being a game developer is breaking the time between work and play. So a lot of the stuff that I enjoy doing is the same stuff that people would call work, like learning about new Unity features or figuring out and playing around with new things that have come out in an engine or trying out new game ideas. A lot of people would consider that work. And when I'm working, even if I'm working at a company, that's happened more times than I can count, I still come home and just keep kind of working and not even realize that I'm working. And I know a lot of developers who have problem of just working too much, and it's not because they're being forced to, it's just because they get so into the job and so into the craft that it becomes like an obsession. That's what happens for me sometimes. So that's probably the hardest part for me. That and figuring out what's actually fun, like figuring out the fun part and getting that kind of tracked down in an actual game. When we talk about actual building of games.
I see. And how did you like work around that, or how did you like separate work from gaming? Do you just like have like a schedule to categorize that, or like how did you separate that?
I just listen to my wife when she tells me I'm working too much. Like, okay, I'll take a break. Like, I'll stop. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've tried doing it on my own. I can't, because just like, this thing is the fun thing to do. Like, I want to go work on this. I want to go look at these character models, set up this new system. It sounds fun. I know it sounds like work. I know I'll probably integrate it into work, but it's the fun thing that I want to do. So I have to kind of be forced externally to remember to stop and enjoy other things.
Now, this is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching this far. Now, if you're interested to see more of this content, please consider like and subscribe this channel.